Hey now Brawlers, today we're going to take a look at Templar Intrigue from Tasty Minstrel Games, and this is the entire game. If you ordered a copy of the game, it came in an envelope that you really can't reuse because it gets all sticky from whatever adhesive they used on it, and it is just 10 cards and the rules. This is one of Tasty Minstrel's micro games. They've done several of these now that they've funded on Kickstarter, and usually they were pay what you want, so you just like the Radiohead album, but not as good. You literally just pay whatever you wanted for it. I think there was like a minimum of like $3, and then you can pay whatever you wanted after that. And this is a game that's trying to be like the Resistance or a werewolf type game, a social deduction game where you are playing in teams. You're on one team. Whatever team you get dealt out is what you're on, and you're trying to beat the other team. But there are a couple of little twists and turns. So let's go through a very brief overview of how the game is played. Then we're going to come back and I'll give you my final thoughts. Okay, I'm going to give you a very brief overview of Templar Intrigue. This is a social deduction game for 7 to 10 players, where the goal is to win for your team. There's 2 teams in the game, the Templar Knights and the Benedictine Monks. If your team wins the game, each player on that team is going to get a point. Then you're going to shuffle, redeal, try it all out again. You might be on a different team this time, but no matter what, you're trying to make whatever your current team is win so that you get a point. Whenever someone, player or players, accrues 3 points, those players are going to win the game. So the game is very fast, hence you play it over multiple hands. So you'll shuffle up and deal out the cards, and when you're playing with less than 10 players, you actually play with less than the 10 cards that come with the game, and that's all that comes with the game, by the way, is 10 cards, and I've sleeved mine. So once you've dealt out those cards, whatever cards that you're using, you might have to remove some for less than 10 players. Everyone gets their roll, the game begins. Now the first thing is that whoever gets dealt the King Philip card, they are actually going to be the only player to reveal themselves at the start of the game. All the other players in the game, you can only see the backs of their cards. The blue indicating that you're a Benedictine Monk, and the red indicating that you're a Templar Knight. Except that you might not actually be those things. Or you might not be on those teams, at least. So each side of the game has a traitor who has infiltrated their ranks. For the Templars, you think that this player is a Templar, when in fact it is a Templar traitor. They are loyal to King Philip. For the Benedictine monks, you may think he's a Benedictine monk, but in actuality he's a Templar archivist. Now, once everyone has their cards dealt out and they know what role they actually are, you're going to go through a Resistance style sort of identification phase, where you're going to, all the Benedictine monks are going to, well, everyone identifies what they are first, just by obvious plain sight. Then all the Benedictine monks and King Philip are going to close their eyes. All the Templars are going to extend their hand outwards. And someone's going to say, okay, whoever is the Grand Master Templar, who is the leader of the Templars, let me find him so I can show you right there. Whoever is the leader of the Templars, the Grand Master, go ahead and open up your hand palm upwards. This is so people that don't notice anything rustling or the table moving. So that's why instead of saying anything or just moving around, you just keep your hands, everyone keeps their hands out, only the Grand Master opens his palm. Once that is identified, all the Templars are going to lower their hands and close their eyes. But then, while everyone's eyes are closed, the Grand Master Templar and the Templar Archivist, that is to say, the Templar who is on the Benedictine Monks team, who has infiltrated their ranks, those two are going to open their eyes and identify each other. So the Grand Master knows who the traitor on the Benedictine Monks team is. It's a little confusing, but essentially it just means that the Templars have a little bit more information. King Philip does not know who his infiltrator is, who the Benedictine, the Templar traitor is on the other team. It just has to take people's word on that. And the goal here is for King Philip to identify who the Grand Master is and who the Templar Archivist is. So at the start, once everyone's got all the roles figured out, you go through that whole process. King Philip listens to discussions from the team, and his goal at the start is to figure out which one of his monks he's going to have examine one of the Templar cards. So he might say to whichever player has this card, I want you to examine this Templar. At which point that player is going to pick up this card, look at it in secret, and then put it back down. At that point, that player can say whatever they want. They can tell the truth, they can lie, they can say nothing, whatever they want to do. That's what they do. So then, King, at that point, everyone just discusses. You can discuss for as long as you want, as little as you want. And if you want to put an end to this right now and get to the final step, you can. But King Philip has a chance to let every monk who's on the team, and remember there might be more monks with more players, he can let every monk do that same process. So that he can then say, okay, I want you to check out this card, look at it, say what you want. Once everyone has either said or not said whatever they want to, and King Philip has had the opportunity at least to send every Benedictine monk out, now it's time for him to make a decision. He has to choose which of the Templar Knights, the red cards, he thinks is the Grandmaster, and which of the Benedictine monks he thinks is the traitor, the Templar Archivist. And while this is going on, everyone is saying everything. I mean, the Templars are trying to trick the Benedictine monks and make them think that the Archivists and the Grandmaster are not who the King Philip thinks that they are. The one loyal Benedictine monk is trying to say, no, listen. You know, the loyal Benedictine monk and the Templar traitor are trying to say, no, this is the Grandmaster, and so on. This is going to go back and forth, and King Philip has to use his intuition and very, very little evidence that he might have in order to make this decision. So once he makes his final decision, he'll say, okay, I think this is the Grandmaster, and I think that this is the Archivist. Those two players will flip themselves over. If both of those guesses were correct, he found both the Grandmaster and the Archivist, then the blue team, the Benedictine monks and King Philip, will each score a point. If even one of those choices was wrong or both of them are wrong, then the Templar team is going to, each player is going to get a point. And then you shuffle up, redeal, and do it all over again. You're going to do this until one or more players has 3 points. Those player or players win the game, and that is Templar Intrigue. Templar Intrigue is a perfect example of two things that I've learned over the last few years of gaming. Number one is that people have been trying to replicate the magic of the Resistance and Werewolf, and almost every single time they fail. There have been a few oddballs, and mostly it's direct derivatives of those games, like Resistance Avalon or One Night Ultimate Werewolf, but most games just fall on their face because they're trying to take that same thing and just add a twist to it without really innovating on the original mechanic at all. The other thing I've learned is just because you have some leftover game mechanics in some game that you were working on at lunch during your day job and that you have up on the shelf, that doesn't mean you can call it a microgame and make money off of it, although obviously they did. This is not a good game. I wanted to like it. I thought that it was kind of intriguing. But at the end of it all, there's a reason why they were asking people to pay what you want for this, because if they had charged what they probably wanted to charge for it, people would have been even more disappointed. This is not an entire game. This is an inkling, the kernel, the seed of a game that maybe could have been, but is not. This is like the very first prototype of what should have been a full game later on, but the designer just said, nah, I'm good, I'm done. Just put this up on Kickstarter and let people pay what they want, and we'll just make it. And that's what this is. They couldn't even be bothered to put a little box with the game. That's kind of the care and attention that's gone into this, which is to say very, very little. I like the artwork on the cards, although it's mostly irrelevant, as is most of the game, and that's about it. It's not... Alright, well, let's not be too cruel. It's not that it's a terrible time. The first couple of rounds that we played this game, it was okay. Everyone was like, oh, okay, we're kind of getting in the swing of things, because it's a little weird at first. I do like the idea of there being an automatic traitor on each team, rather than just saying, here's all the good guys, and then there's a spy team. Instead, there's 2 teams, and there's 1 person on each one. I mean, that's the entire little thing that the game is trying to do to set itself apart. But it's really just comes out feeling very clunky, and the common sentiment with both groups that I played this with was, why would I play this game over the Resistance? I hate it when I have to keep comparing one game to another, but really, that is the humongous elephant gorilla in the room, because this game is like a single round, maybe half a round of what the Resistance is. But in the Resistance, or Werewolf, Werewolf to a lesser degree, but you have evidence. The game goes on long enough that you have these breadcrumbs that you can follow, and there's these interesting little politicking going on and constant accusations, and there might be special abilities depending on what versions of those games that you have, but there is none of that in Templar Intrigue. None of it. And I know that people that are going to defend this are going to say, well, it's a micro game. Of course it's not going to be. It's supposed to be played very, very quickly, and it's supposed to be pocket portable and be taken around. But those games I mentioned before, Werewolf and Resistance, are fairly portable and still fast. And there's more of a game there. This is more of a dumb activity. That's the best way that I can describe it. And not a very fun one for me. The game is played over you play several games, several hands of it, because it's so fast and because there has to be some way of determining who won, so you score points, and there's not even point trackers, so you just kind of, I used the coins from the builders in the first game that we were playing, and I used little, fishbowl stone thingies from one of my house decorations for the second game that we played. And for the amount of money that it made, they could have had a box and counters, that's all that I'm saying. But each time that you play, you shuffle different hands, so you're on different teams. It doesn't feel like you've accomplished anything. I'm not saying that the Resistance and Werewolf are that thematic, but there's some theme there, and it comes out, and you're telling a story. There's no story here. It's just, yay, we won by pure random chance because, I don't know, you kind of looked at me funny. That's the sum total of evidence here. So, not a good game, not for me. I would pass it up. I know that eventually you'll probably be able to get this, and it'll probably be cheap or with a package with a lot of other micro games. But this one in particular is no good. You are better off just trying to get, even if it's an old copy of the Resistance, much better than this one. That's Templar Intrigue, 2 thumbs down. My name is Nick. This has been Board Game Brawl, and I'm reminding you to get out there and game every day and in every way. Take care.